Welcome to the Geek Easy, fellow geeks. Let's open a beverage of your choice. Don't drive at night and don't stop. Pretty simple rules to follow. Those are the two main rules that you find out in Passenger, a 2026 horror movie that I just got out of seeing 2 or 3 hours ago. I needed to take some time to collect my thoughts on it. So, what we have is a movie with Tyler and Maddie. Don't want to say couple. They are boyfriend and girlfriend at the beginning and eventually become engaged during the movie. So they are a couple who have decided to quit their jobs and live the nomadic life, the van life, as they refer to it in the movie. I'm sure you've heard of people who have like RVs or some sort of a vehicle, and they just drive around the country, don't have an actual house, and just drive around. And they go out. You see them moving out of, I guess it was her apartment or something like that, and getting everything in there, and heading out on the road for the first little bit. And there's a little time jump of 6 weeks. And during that, this is where while they're driving, they take a little side trip, and they're driving at night, and they have a car that is just driving past them at crazy speeds, and it crashes up ahead of them. Now, here is the one thing that I found really kind of interesting. This is this part of the setup for the movie where you eventually find out, you're not supposed to drive at night and you don't stop. But there is a little, you see a lot of horror movies, there's a little, 4 or 5 minute thing at the very beginning before everything sets up, where, say, you have the initial victims of said killer or said whatever, and then you never really see them again. But here is the interesting part, because at the very beginning of this movie, you have these two guys who are driving down the street at night. Dude has to stop and take a whiz. So you've seen it in the previews. If you saw it in the previews, you see these two, and he stops to take a piss, and that's where the driver gets taken. And other dude goes off. You see him speed off. He's driving down and getting chased by the bad guy. Well, you don't see what happens to him, and then at this point, this is dude. So they come. That is how this stuff is connected, because he comes up, he wrecks, and then they stop to help him. Because you see someone, even though he's driving like an asshole, someone wrecks and you see someone get hurt, you're gonna stop and help. and that's when they pick up the passenger. And which I thought was really kind of cool. You really don't, a lot of times, there may not be as a direct connection as there was in this one. So I sort of liked that. But and then things start kind of picking up for them. And one thing I like about this movie is the relationship between the guy and the girl. Usually, like if there's one person that sees the creature or the whatever, and the other person takes one, give a lot of convincing to, because they won't see it, that something's happening. This one, it's the girl Maddie. She saw stuff. She was getting her suspicions, but he didn't see it. But he believes her. He's like, okay, I believe. And eventually he starts to experience it himself. So there's not a lot of hey, no, this is bullshit. A lot of this would be solved if dude would just fucking pay attention to the other person. This one actually believes her, and so they're able to start solving things a little bit quicker. It's got an hour and a half run time, so it goes at a really good pace. The way they find things out and the way certain things happen is not forced. It's not one of those, oh, come on type of, you've seen a lot of horror movies where it's just a bunch of dumb people making stupid decisions that would only happen in a horror movie. This one, there's not really much that they can do. There's, they try and follow the rules. That they eventually find out, don't drive at night and don't ever stop. Yeah, but then, things happen like it's a flat tire, which, will happen on the road. And it all leads up to a pretty kind of intense ending, which I don't want to give away. It's a well done movie. It's a very well acted and written. Like one of the things I enjoy about this movie is there's never really doubt as to whether the relationship between the two is going to last. If the people survive, that is. Because, a lot of times they will, people argue and argue and argue. The only thing in this movie was, the husband, the boyfriend had a stable life where he had a, from what I understand, he had like a mother and father, and boom, boom, boom. But the girl, she kept getting bumped from foster home to foster home to foster home. And this is kind of important in this movie because one of the reasons he wanted to go on the road and do this was because he wanted freedom. He didn't want to be confined. It sounded like from some of the things he said that he had a not so great family life, even with a mother and father all in the same house and all that stuff. And she wanted to settle down and have a place to call home, as opposed to just moving around a lot. And there was some brief discussion on that There was almost a that whole Christmas story about the guy who sold his music box or whatever it was to get a comb for his wife because she loved her hair, but they were both poor, and she cut her hair to get a present for him. They gave up what they loved most for their, other husband, for their significant other. This one was like this. They were both willing to, So the question, the relationship was never in doubt, and I liked that. But there wasn't. It's not a lot of blood. There is a kind of a slow start to it, but then it picks up, and it doesn't get really frantic or anything like that. But it's just a logical progression, and it just kind of builds up to the end, and it's well done. Now, it's not as good as the best horror movie that I've seen so far this year, Obsession, but this is up there. I would put it at a 4.25 out of 5, because the writing is good, the characters, you really like the characters. It's not just one of those things where you're like, oh, come on. There's not a huge overuse of jump scares. There are a couple here and there, which I like. I don't like movies that rely way too much on jump scares. One or two are okay, and this one had, a couple. But the tension and stuff was kind of natural. So I recommend going and seeing this movie. It's one of the better movies that I've seen this year and one of the better horror ones. So like I said, 4.25 out of 5. So just an hour and a half, about a 98-minute runtime. So take an afternoon, take a night, and grab some popcorn and give it a watch. So like, subscribe, possibly share most of all. Enjoy your horror movies.